So welcome to part 2 of how cells exchange materials. And we were talking about diffusion and osmosis in the last section. Now let's ask this question. How is it that cells maintain different concentrations of materials inside and outside of a membrane? Such as in these examples. We have a different concentration on one side of the membrane than on the other. And the answer to this question is transport proteins. So transport proteins are proteins that assist the movement of substances across the membranes. And here are a few different examples. So how do transport proteins work? Well, they work by means of either passive transport or active transport. And let's look at what those mean. When we talk about passive transport, we are talking about diffusion without any input of energy. Passive transport just happens, and we don't need any energy to make it happen. Here are some examples of passive transport. We have right here, we're going from high concentration to low concentration. That happens. We don't need to put energy into that system to make it happen. We're going from high to low concentration in both of those situations. That's passive transport. No energy is required. Active transport, on the other hand, requires energy. During active transport, we are moving substances against their concentration gradients. If you look at this example, we have these little square-shaped molecules that are being transported from a low concentration into a high concentration of them. That requires energy to make that happen. ATP is a form of energy common in cells, and ATP is often used to energize this reaction and make it happen. Now let's look at some of these a little more in depth, some of these passive transport examples. In our last slide, we saw these exact same examples. We know that this is simply pure diffusion. These molecules are traveling from a location of high concentration to a location of low concentration. They're crossing this membrane, and this is called diffusion, high concentration to low concentration. Here, something different is going on here. The molecules are not simply crossing the membrane. They're being helped across the membrane by transport proteins. That's what we call facilitated diffusion. Facilitated diffusion is diffusion with the help of a transport protein. So this diffusion is not happening all by itself. It is happening with the help of these proteins. These represent transport proteins. So now you get to try. Look at this diagram and decide which of these examples are passive transport and which of them are active transport. You have 3 different examples, and pause the video here and see if you can decide which ones are active and which ones are passive transport. Okay, here are the answers. We have passive transport here. We have passive transport here. We know that. Why? Because the molecules are traveling from location of high concentration to a location of low concentration, and they do not require any energy in both these instances. This one is active transport. Why? Well, 2 reasons. We're going from a location where we have low concentration to a high concentration area, and we are requiring energy to make that happen. That is active transport. So now what are the specific types of transport being illustrated? Just a quick review. This is diffusion. This is facilitated diffusion because it's using a transport protein in order to make that diffusion happen. Advanced proficiency ideas. You could explain the processes of endocytosis and exocytosis. Is energy required for these processes? You could research different types of transport proteins. Explain how they function. So I look forward to seeing some of your ideas, and we'll see you in class.